We described our culture and we put it in there as well, simply because people were asking, how would you describe the culture? And I thought, well, if I don't describe it, people are going to start describing it for me. So often we try to complicate all the vision, mission, value stuff, but if you're not hiring and firing based on it, forget the rest.
Like when you all have bought companies and we're like, man, that feels like a Nix team. Or when a customer comes in and they go, you just feel something. Welcome to the 5th episode of the ProFab Alliance podcast. We're continuing our conversation with Matthew Nix, who is the co-founder of the ProFab Alliance and the president and owner of Nix Companies in Poseyville, Indiana. We've been talking about their 100X journey, and we last left off talking about the foundations of building a great team, and that kind of teased what I think Nix does really well, which is laying out a vision, mission, and core values, and as you always say, operationalizing the values as well. So just talk a little bit about the importance of having a vision, a mission, and then having actionable values as well.
Sure, yeah. So people talk about this all the time. So I'm gonna try to drill down into one area of this that I think is unique, that I think maybe I can add some value to, because people talk about vision, mission, values all the time. So if you're listening, before you turn this off, just know we're gonna drill into one area of this. I call it operationalizing the core values. That's what we're gonna get into. But before we do, I'll just hit a broad strokes thing on the vision, mission. We have vision, mission, culture, and values. We've actually defined our culture. So anyways, going back to the vision, people overcomplicate that. You can read 20 books and they'll do it 20 different ways. It really doesn't matter. But it has to clearly articulate where you're trying to go, and it needs to inspire people. If you can't remember it and it's not inspiring, throw it away and start over. And we've tweaked ours over the years, and actually the theme of ours hasn't changed. Today it says we want to create a world-class team, and then underneath that it says and be a national leader in the industries that we operate. 4 generations. We added the words 4 generations because we wanted to, again, part of the vision is articulating where we want to go, and we wanted to make it clear in the vision that we want this to last beyond us. But for most part, what we've done with our vision statement is we've actually condensed it. We've got rid of words. So every year, the executive team and I, we sit down, and before we do our strategic planning, the very first thing we do is look at our vision statement and say, does that still make sense? Is that our vision, truly our vision, our North Star? Because if not, everything else we're about to do for the next 3 days is pointless. So we really make sure, yes, that is our vision. That's where we want to go. And we've massaged it. Like I said, we've cut a few words out of it, made it flow better. And I think the more short and concise it can be, the better. So that's the thing I would say about the vision. For us, and some people put mission first, then vision. Some people just have a purpose statement. There's all different ways to do it. There's no right or wrong way. It doesn't really matter. For us, we have a vision. We say the vision is where we want to go. It's aspirational. It's our North Star. Then we have a mission. For us, the mission is how we're going to get there. And we have an overarching slogan in our mission, that's be big, act small. And so really everything we do is around that culture and philosophy of be big, act small, which is why it's our mission. Our mission is to be a big company and act like a small company. And then, everything flows out from that. And then of course your core values. I think the important thing there is they've got to be core. They can't just be a nice idea. I learned this on a podcast. Dina Dwyer Owens, she's built an incredible company called Neighborly, and one thing she talked about on the podcast was, your values can be somewhat aspirational, but you have to articulate the behaviors. Those can't be aspirational. So, for example, one of our core values is growth and improvement. That's a nice idea. I mean, you generally know what that means, but what does that really look like? So we list a set of behaviors underneath growth and improvement, like being open-minded. That's very tangible. We know what open-minded, someone that is and isn't open-minded. And so, hungry for growth. They've got to be somebody, are you reading? Are you listening to podcasts? Are you doing continuing education? Those are real tangible, what we call behaviors that support our values. So I think those are some real fundamental things about how we do our vision, mission, culture, and values. And we described our culture and we put it in there as well. simply because people were asking, how would you describe the culture? And I thought, well, if I don't describe it, people are going to start describing it for me. So I better decide, how would we describe it? But what I tell our team and I tell people all the time is, you can't decide what the culture is. You can define what the culture is, but the culture is what it is. It was decided years ago. Now we can say, hey, we'd like to change our culture, we slowly start tilting it this way, and 3 years from now, you might look up and say, yeah, our culture's a little different than what it was. For example, we have a culture that's very high growth. We've been an Inc. 5000 fastest growing company for several years. A lot of what we did revolved around super high growth. That is a part of our culture that I've been very intentional about saying, hey, over the next 5 years, 3 to 5 years, we're going to start tilting away from that a little bit. That you can't do that overnight. You can't just say, we're going to stop being a high growth company. There's economic reasons you can't do that. There's cultural and people reasons why you can't do that. That's something that you can strategically say, hey, I'd like to lean the culture this way a little bit. And you start changing, you just change the little things. 3 to 5 years from now, you look up and you say, we may not be recognized as a high growth company. We might be a progressive, forward thinking company, but we wouldn't necessarily be way up there in that bucket. And so that's just an example of how, I can't just say today, all right, we're no longer a high growth culture, because that's a lie. We are. We can say we'd like to change that a little bit. And it's not as if we don't want to keep growing. Of course we do, but you can't sustain 1,000% growth, for very long. And so, you start to adjust those kinds of things. So
I just want to chime in a little bit. I think, some people that might be listening to this probably don't realize that, at one time I was part of the Nix team, right? And the one thing I always talked to people about was that I would go into these other businesses and they would have core values on the wall, but no one actually, for one, they may not know what they are, which is okay. It's hard for every teamer to memorize every core value. You could at least feel it when you go into Nix. You feel that people were trying to live up to those core values and that they were using those when they made their decisions throughout the day.
Yeah.
Is this continuous improvement? Is this growing? Whatever it is, you could feel that. And I think when you talk about operationalizing values, that's what's going on. I think even now that you're actually defining it and saying, hey, we're going to do this, I think your team members were already kind of doing it because of some of the smaller things you guys are doing. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So that's operationalizing the values. That is, when we say that, we mean, how do we take these ideas and actually live them out daily? I was listening to an awesome podcast the other day. Who's the guy? My mind just went blank. Daily Wire, the main guy that hosts Daily Wire. Do you know who I'm talking about here?
Drawing a blank on that
Well,
one.
this is terrible. I'll think of it in a minute. But anyways, he said, I love this. He was talking about the difference in Judeo-Christian principles and Jewish and Christian people. And he said, there's a philosophy of I believe this, therefore I will do the thing, versus I will do the thing and therefore I will believe. And there's a really fundamental difference there. And I think core values, vision, mission, values actually works both ways. So it's like we sit down and we talk about what we believe in, and because we believe in it, we're going to operate a certain way. So because we believe, we will do the thing. But it also works the other way. It's, hey, let's just do the thing. And if we do it enough, we'll start believing that, right? So it's, we'll do the thing because we believe, and we'll believe because we do the thing. And the thing can be whatever. Like, for example, I always lead every company-wide meeting off with talking about the vision, mission, values, And there's some days I get out of bed, I'm like, I don't want to talk about this again. I'm not in the mood, but I have to do it. I'm the leader of this. If I don't do it, nobody else is going to. And I tell our team, I know some of you have been around a while, you've heard this a bunch, but you might hear something different today. And there's also people here that haven't heard it, so just hang in here. I'm going to give my spiel again. So it starts, with that. And obviously, I believe in our vision, mission, values. I'm the one primarily behind developing them. But there's days I don't believe it. We're human. There's days where you wake up and you're like, man, do I really believe in the vision today? Do I really think we can do that? But I talk about it enough, and I'm with people, and to where then I'll start to believe it again, right? And so it's very circular. So I have to talk about it I have to, lead that example. Again, Dina Dwyer Owens, who I talked about before, they have a rule in their organization that anytime 3 or more people meet, they talk about the values. We don't have that rule, but I think it's great. That works for them. Anytime 3 or more people come together, you talk about it. I mean, that's so concrete and so fundamental. For us, we've got structured team meetings. We have weekly staff meetings and a monthly management meeting where we lead those meetings off by talking about it. So we've at least incorporated into that. We have morning toolbox meetings in all of our shops. So this past year, I asked all of our operations managers, those are the guys that run each of the locations, and they'll have a team of 5 to 20 folks on their team. So when we came together as a leadership team for our annual kickoff, we did a breakout session, and I asked each of them to come up with how are you going to operationalize the culture and values within your area of the business. And we give them autonomy. They can all do that differently, but they said, all right, here's my plan. This is how I'm going to do it. We're going to, once a week, we're going to do a group share on one topic, or once a week, we're going to go around the room and each of them is going to say, we're going to pick one of the values and they're going to say how they saw it lived out this week or what it means to them. They get to decide how they do that, but we're going to talk about that. And then every single Tuesday, our entire company comes together, as you've seen, you've been a part of that, for a company-wide meeting. And people come together in their respective locations, and then we video broadcast it as well. And we do core value shares. So people throughout the week send core value shares in, and it gets put up on the big screen, and we read them every single week. We pick the best ones out. Every week we give $10 out. Every 6 months we give $100 out. It's a small thing, but it's amazing what people will do for $10 bill. You used to be able to buy your lunch, not anymore, but I guess we need to raise what we're giving out. But people will recognize. My favorite one of all time was one of our core values is caring for people. And one of the shop floor guys sent in a core value share for one of his coworkers. They were off on lunch break at the convenience store, and he saw him hold the door open for an elderly lady. And he sent in caring for people, and he told the story. It wasn't even anything that had to do with work. And that's when I knew, okay, this is starting to stick, like you talked about. This, I always said I didn't want it to be something that hangs on the wall. And when that core value share got sent in, that's when I knew, okay, it's starting to take hold here. And so you just have to just remember, I think that's the last key point I want to make is I think sometimes we get hung up on, we have to do the thing because we believe. And sometimes it's like, just do the thing and then you'll believe. And just remember that it works both ways. Just keep doing the right thing over and over again. And you'll look up and you'll have a vision, mission, values that is disseminated through the organization and is operationalized.
What are some do's and don'ts when it comes to operationalizing core values?
So there's one big don't, and that's, well, two, I guess. Really easy to say, very, very uncomplicated, super hard to live up to. So that is hire and fire based on them. And if you do those two things, and if you bookend it with that, the stuff in the middle will sort of take care of itself. I mean, we just talked about all the things in the middle, the operationalizing it, but you have to try your best to hire based on that, So what does that look like in a production environment? Well, if somebody clearly has a track record of instability and dishonesty, but man, they sure are an expert. Man, they sure are a fantastic welder or a fantastic machinist. Or in the interview process, you just get a bad gut feeling. That's something that our hiring managers have really come a long way on and done a great job at, is just trusting their gut. And you're under a gun, you got a position you need to fill, you got a deadline you need to hit. That's when you start to shy away from the values, and you just have a bad gut feeling about somebody, but you really need to fill that spot and you hire them anyways. That's where you start to venture off. On the flip side of that is, every now and then the best laid plans don't work, and you think you've got a great person that's going to live up to the values, and all of a sudden they fooled you, and they either have a really bad attitude, they're very toxic, negative, or they're not showing up for work, so on and so forth. We coach them up, of course, and we do performance improvement plans, and we try to make it crystal clear that, listen, you're not living up to our values, and this is the thing we need to correct. And if we don't, here's what's going to happen. But in the end, if they don't want to help themselves, you've got to part ways with them. I call it pruning the branches. But if you don't do those two things, nothing else is going to matter. And we're not perfect. We don't get it right all the time, but we really, really try to hold each other accountable, And there's times where I'll see a manager if it's something extreme, I'm going to get involved, but I'll see that he or she's probably not, that they know what they probably should do, but they're not wanting to do it, and I'll just let them make the mistake, and they'll end up terminating the person a month later, and they'll say, damn, I should have done that sooner. I learned my lesson. Or I had a bad feeling about that person, but I hired him anyways. I've made all those mistakes too. It's easier when you're not in the heat of the moment to recognize it. I think that's what we have to do as owners and senior leaders, is to help see those blind spots for our folks that are in the trenches and they just want to get the job done. And you can say, wait a minute, I know you want to get that done, but if we do this, look at all the compounding negative effects that's going to have on our business. You might get that job done, but what's that ripple effect going to be down the road? And just give them permission to just wait. Let's find the right person, And so I think so often we try to complicate all the, vision, mission, value stuff, but if you're not hiring and firing based on it, forget the rest.
That's awesome. That's I think, probably the biggest knowledge nugget that we had in this episode. I had one more question kind of pop up, and that is something that, again, when I've been around the Nix, the different departments, like when you all have, bought companies and we're like, man, that feels like a Nix team, or when a customer comes in and they go, you just feel something here, you feel it. Can you just talk about a little bit about the external factors of your vision, mission, and values? So we've been talking about driving the company internally and employees living up to it.
Yeah.
But I think a good vision, mission, and good values are felt outside the organization. Can you talk to that?
Well, absolutely, yeah. And that comes out in people's interaction with you in real life, also in social media. They see how that's manifested, right? And so, I just received an email before we did this podcast where we had a field service team that was 2 hours away working for 3 days on their own. The customer sent me an email, said, your foreman on site was outstanding, very professional, et cetera, et cetera. That's our culture coming through, right? And so it can be very basic things. Like, for example, I ask our guys to keep their shirts tucked in the shop. It's a very fundamental thing. But in our industry, our competitors, a lot of it's pretty ragtag. People smoke in the shop. Their shirts are untucked. They look like, they might have cut-off sleeve shirts on. They look like slobs. And so for us, professionalism is one of the behaviors, that supports our values, growth, and improvement. And so we really focus on these little things like that. And those are the things you talk about, what people see and experience. That's part of it. It's, how do the company vehicles look? What does the lobby look like when people walk in? What do the people look like? They're walking around looking like slobs. Are they friendly? Are they all walking around like they bump on a log? Do they drag their feet when they walk, or do they walk with urgency? It's all these little things. And why are those things tilted in the positive in our circumstances? Because we decided what was important to us. We hired people, that we thought would align with that. And then, we've got a compelling vision. We said, this is where we want to go, let's go, And people walk with urgency. They're professional. They look like they want to be there. And, they're excited about what we're doing. And you feel that when you go into an organization. You just do. And so that's one of my favorite things to do, is to bring people in and give them a tour. If I'm trying to recruit some top talent, or I'm trying to make a big sales pitch, I want to get them here to our place, because you can't describe it. You just have to feel it.
It was awesome talking about, how you operationalize core values and how people get a feeling when they come into Nix. And I think other companies can learn from that you can have a feeling when you go into their facilities. And it's not the same as the Nix facility. They can have their own culture, their own core values, their own visions and things like that. But it's important to have those. I think that's what we've kind of established. And now we've talked all the way up to here. We talked about laying out the foundation to build a great team. We've landed some big jobs and really have propelled Nix to that next level. And as you go on that next level, you're now in a high growth mode, right? What are going to be some of the stumbles and some of the maybe fallbacks that you can learn that other companies can learn from? And so with that being said, I think that's what we're going to talk about in the next episode. So in the next episode of the ProFab Alliance, we'll talk about a little bit of those stumbles and those fallbacks, things like that. So stay tuned, keep listening to the ProFab Alliance podcast.